Hi everyone, Kate here to do one of my favorite videos to do every year, and that is my Victober TBR. And last year I did not budget my time wisely, and I wasn't able to carry on the tradition of reading the first paragraph or so of each book. So I do have a long list here, but the ones where it's an interesting opening and something intriguing, I'll read the opening paragraph of each selection to you. And there are a couple that are really dialogue heavy, and so I will skip those but give you a synopsis of them. This is also a Boo To You TBR, but I'm making it Boo To You, but Victober. So I'm looking forward to telling you about all of the books, and I will link down below. Emma from Bookish Princess and Anne from Disney Princess Lessons are the co-hosts of Boo To You, and it's this really fun, spooky Disney readathon, and in honor of Disney World's 50th anniversary opening, and it's a lot of fun. So I really wanted to participate this year, and I had several books that I really wanted to read for Victober that also worked for Boo To You, and Boo To You is not limited to a time period, so I'm just doing all the things this month. Before I jump into those books though, I will say, in addition to the Victober books I'm going to tell you about, I am also reading the 9 chapters out of Juliet Barker's The Brontes epic biography. I am loving it. The discussion of the first 9 chapters is this coming Saturday evening, and it's going to be so much fun. So I will continue through that in October. And then I am also hosting a Halloween read-along of Halloween Party by Agatha Christie. The discussion of that will be at 3 p.m. on October the 31st, Halloween. I thought it'd be really fun to have it on that actual day. And if you would like to join, email me. I will put my email address down in the description box, and it's going to be really fun. It's a Zoom discussion. It's free. If you want to come and discuss Halloween Party, you are welcome to do so. Without further ado, my other, the big star of the show, my Victober TBR, I'm going to go through the challenges. And the first challenge I want to tell you about is Lucy's Challenge, a book with a female main character. And I'm going to be reading a book that I heard about from Kaylee at Luminous Libro. And you'll be hearing Kaylee talk about this in a special video that's coming out on October 1st on my channel, a collaborative video. And she made this sound so intriguing that I added it to my TBR. And the book is Thelma by Marie Corelli. And the first paragraph says, "Midnight, without darkness, without stars. Midnight and the unwearied sun stood, yet visible in the heavens, like a victorious king throned on a dais of royal purple, bordered with gold. The sky above him, his canopy, gleamed with a cold yet lustrous blue, while across it slowly flitted a few wandering clouds of palest amber, deepening as they sailed along to a tawny orange. A broad stream of light falling, as it were, from the center of the magnificent orb, shot lengthwise across the Alton Fjord, turning its waters to a mass of quivering and shifting color that alternated from bronze to copper, from copper to silver and azure. The surrounding hills glowed with a warm, deep violet tint, flecked here and there with touches of bright red, as though fairies were lighting tiny bonfires on their summits. Away in the distance, a huge mass of rock stood out to view, its rugged lines transfigured into ethereal loveliness by a misty veil of tender rose pink, a hue curiously suggestive of some other and smaller sun that might have just set. Absolute silence prevailed. Not even the cry of a sea mew or a kittiwake broke the almost death-like stillness. No breath of wind stirred a ripple on the glassy water. The whole scene might well have been the fantastic dream of some imaginative painter whose ambition soared beyond the limits of human skill. Yet it was only one of those million wonderful effects of sky and sea which are common in Norway, especially on the Alton Fjord, where, though beyond the Arctic Circle, the climate in summer is that of another Italy, and the landscape a living poem fairer than the visions of Endymion." Who wouldn't want to read that book after reading that first paragraph? And Kaylee also, what intrigued me is it involves Norway, a lot of the plot, and any Victorian novel that is set outside of England, I am intrigued. And Marie Corelli was fairly prolific. I had not heard of her until Kaylee mentioned her. And it's just supposed to have a very engaging heroine. I'm going in a little bit blind to the plot because Kaylee did speak about it, and it just kind of it left me what the plot is about. So I am really excited about this one, especially a new to me author that if I like this book, which it seems like I will, I have many other books to explore. And then Katie's challenge is read a Victorian novel set in the countryside and/or the city. And I will be doing the and/or part of this, or the and part of this. I'm going to be doing both the city and the countryside. So for the countryside, I will be doing Wuthering Heights. And I was at a used bookstore yesterday and they had this for $5. I have sort of inadvertently started collecting different editions of Wuthering Heights. It's been an unintentional project, but then it just keeps happening. So I think I'm collecting Wuthering Heights. I didn't think it would have been, the Victorian novel that I would collect, but there are so many beautiful editions out there. The one thing that I don't like about this cover is it makes it look like Hollywood wants you to think that it is just this great sweeping romance, and it is not. So do not think that about Wuthering Heights. If you go in thinking that, you're going to be sorely disappointed. And I cannot wait to revisit this book. It's one of my favorite Victorian novels, and I am one of the co-hosts of a read-along, along with Kaylee from Luminous Libro, Victoria from A Musical Bookworm, Emily from Novelle Novels, Gemma from Read a Book Gem, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and I think that is everyone. It is a lot of hosts to keep track of, and we're really excited to be reading Wuthering Heights, and we are going to be discussing it on Saturday, October 30th, and my email is down below if you want to join that Zoom discussion. It's going to be recorded, not live, but it will be recorded, and then I will put it up later on. Just last year, there were a couple people that asked if there were certain things I could not put up in the final video that went up, people that felt like they weren't that quick on their feet in the discussion. So then I was able to kind of edit it down, and it made for a really fun video to have there for people that weren't able to attend the discussion. Also, if you're not comfortable showing your face or, talking in a discussion like that, some people attend with their camera off and they just type in the chat. So there's always that option. But I'm making this video very long, so I need to read the first paragraph. 1801. I've just returned from a visit to my landlord, the solitary neighbor that I shall be troubled with. This is certainly a beautiful country. In all England, I do not believe that I could have fixed on a situation so completely removed from the stir of society. A perfect misanthropist heaven, and Mr. Heathcliff and I are such a suitable pair to divide the desolation between us. A capital fellow. He little imagined how my heart warmed towards him when I beheld his black eyes withdraw so suspiciously under their brows as I rode up, and when his fingers sheltered themselves with a jealous resolution still further in his waistcoat as I announced my name. Mr. Heathcliff, I said. A nod was the answer. I adore this book and can't wait to revisit it. Then for the city aspect of the prompt, I'm going to be reading The Beetle by Richard Marsh. This was an 1897 horror novel about some ancient Egyptian entity that is haunting a British member of Parliament. Jennifer Brooks read this last year and loved it. It outsold Dracula that year, the year that it was published. And what makes this even more exciting is that I have a friend named Teresa, and she is in my Patreon book club, and she is getting her doctorate in Egyptology. And what better opportunity to read this book than to do it as a buddy read with an Egyptologist? I'm sure she will just have so much interesting trivia, and I'm very much looking forward to reading it with her. The opening paragraph was not all that enticing, so I will not read it for this video. Then my challenge is to read a sensation novel. And I'm going to be reading, it's now a tradition, with Kate from the Novel Nomad, a Mary Elizabeth Braddon book. And we are going to be reading John Marchmont's Legacy. I adore Mary Elizabeth Braddon, so I'm excited to hopefully have another favorite Victorian novel after reading this. And the opening paragraph says, the history of Edward Arundel, second son of Christopher Arundel, Dangerfield Arundel of Dangerfield Park, Devonshire, began on a certain dark winter's night, upon which the lad, still a schoolboy, went with his cousin, Martin Mostyn, to witness a blank verse tragedy at one of the London theatres. Oh, and then I'll just read the next sentence. There are few men who, looking back at the long story of their lives, cannot point to one page in the record of the past at which the actual history of life began. The page may come in the very middle of the book, perhaps almost at the end, but let it come where it will, it is, after all, only the actual commencement. At an appointed hour in man's existence, the overture, which has been going on ever since he was born, is brought to a sudden close by a sharp vibration of the prompter's signal bell. The curtain rises and the drama of life begins. So, looking forward to reading another Mary Elizabeth Braddon. And the synopsis basically looks like our heroine, Olivia Arundel, feels like she is not, what did it say? She can find no outlet for either her intellectual abilities or her fierce passions. So maybe a little bit of the doctor's wife themes going on in there. I'm not sure. And then we move on to the group challenge of read a popular Victorian novel. And I'm going to be reading The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. I have not read any of H.G. Wells' science fiction, which is ridiculous. And I am trying to remedy that. Now, here's the best part. I'm going to be reading it with Kieran from KD Books. Kieran, who is such a Victober cheerleader. If you have been following my Insta stories, where I've been posting a different illustration from a Victorian novel every day, Kieran is so enthusiastic about Victober and cannot wait to read this with him. So the first paragraph says, on February the 1st, 1887, the Lady Vane was lost by collision with a derelict when about the latitude 1 degree south and the longitude 107 degrees west. On January the 5th, that is 11 months and 4 days after, my uncle Edward Prendick, a private gentleman who certainly went aboard the Lady Vane at Callao and who had been considered drowned, was picked up in latitude 5 degrees 3 south and longitude 101 degrees west, and a small open boat, of which the name was illegible, but which is supposed to have belonged to the missing schooner Ipecacuanha. He gave such a strange account of himself that he was supposed demented. Subsequently, he alleged that his mind was a blank from the moment of his escape from the Lady Vane. His case was discussed among psychologists at the time as a curious instance of the lapse of memory consequent upon physical and mental stress. The following narrative was found among his papers by the undersigned, his nephew and heir, but unaccompanied by any definite request for publication. The only island known to exist in the region in which my uncle was picked up is Noble's Isle, a small volcanic islet and uninhabited. It was visited in 1891 by HMS Scorpion. A party of sailors then landed, but found nothing living thereon except certain curious white moths, some hogs and rabbits, and some rather peculiar rats, so that this narrative is without confirmation in its most essential particular. With that understood, there seems no harm in putting this strange story before the public in accordance, as I believe, with my uncle's intentions. So I don't know what to expect. I haven't even read a synopsis of this because I think it will be pretty spoilery. I just know that we're going to find out what happened with this island, and I assume there is a Dr. Moreau. Looking forward to finally getting around to some H.G. Wells science fiction. And then the group read is Gothic Tales by Elizabeth Gaskell, and I've only read the Old Nurse's story out of this. And this is a group of stories that all have a sort of Gothic feel to them, which is perfect for these darker, cooler months. And then I am hosting a read-along in my Patreon book club, and we are going to be reading Lorna Dune. This will be a reread for me. I love Lorna Dune. It is just cozy and gentle, but it also has some adventure things in there, adventurous plot elements. And let's see, the first paragraph, it says, if anybody cares to read a simple tale told simply, I, John Ridd, of the parish of Orr, in the county of Somerset, yeoman and churchwarden, have seen and had a share in some doings of this neighborhood, which I will try to set down in order, God sparing my life and memory. And they who light upon this book should bear in mind not only that I write for the clearing of our parish from ill fame and calumny, but also a thing which will, I trow, appear too often in it, to wit, that I am nothing more than a plain unlettered man, not read in foreign languages as a gentleman might be, nor gifted with long words, even in mine own tongue, save what I may have won from the Bible or Master William Shakespeare, whom in the face of common opinion I do value highly. In short, I am an ignoramus, but pretty well for a yeoman. And this is the story of John Ridd, who you just heard in that paragraph is our narrator, and his knowing that the Doone family, they are this clan that live nearby, and they are enemies with the Ridd family. But he meets Lorna, who is from the Doone family, and everything changes because of that. And I love this book. It is very long, but I like the writing style, so I'm okay with that. An element that I am including in my TBR this year, which I try to include each year, is some poetry. But I will only be beginning this. It will only be the very beginning of this project. I'm going to be starting on an epic journey of reading Robert Browning's huge narrative poem, The Ring and the Book. And this is about a murder trial that happened, it says, in 1698. And where does it say? In Italy, but I can't see where in Italy. Oh, Florence. Okay. And I want to keep reading more Victorian poetry, but this is very intimidating. But that is where the buddy read comes in, and Jennifer Brooks and Roz from Scally Dandling About Books and I are going to be buddy reading this. There are 12 books in this, 12 parts, and we're going to be reading 2 parts each month. So I'm feeling really excited about this because I think if I do successfully complete this, it will be one of the most memorable books I ever read. And let's read the first stanza maybe. And the language, you're gonna tell, it's a lot. So we will be taking this slow. It says, "Do you see this ring? 'Tis Rome work made to match by Castellani's imitative craft. Etrurian circlets found some happy morn, after a dropping April found alive, spark like mid-unearthed slope-slide fig tree roots, that roof old tombs at Chusey, soft, you see, yet crisp as jewel cutting. There's one trick, craftsmen instruct me, one approved device, and but one fits such slivers of pure gold, as this was, such mere oozings from the mine, virgin as oval tawny pendant tear, at beehive edge when ripened combs o'erflow, to bear the file's tooth and the hammer's tap. Since hammer needs must widen out the round, and file emboss it fine with lily flowers, ere the stuff grow a ring thing right to wear. That trick is, the artificer melts up wax, with honey, so to speak. He mingles gold with gold's alloy, and duly tempering both, effects a manageable mass, and then works. But his work ended, once the thing a ring, oh, there's repristination, just a spirit. Oh, the proper fiery acid o'er its face, and forth the alloy, unfastened flies and fume. While self-sufficient now the shape remains, that rondure brave the lily loveliness, gold as it was, shall be evermore. Prime nature with an added artistry, no carat lost, and you have gained a ring." This is going to be an epic journey, and like I said, I think it's going to be worth the work of kind of wading through the language, and I'm really excited about it. And then on to the Boo To You prompts. I'm going to be, I have a book that I picked for each prompt, and they are based on a ticket system that was there when the park very first opened, and different sections of the park. So some of them I've gone with being inspired by a specific book, and some of them I've gone kind of inspired by a section of the park. But for the A ticket, so there's 5 prompts, and for the A ticket section, I'm going with Main Street, which is just, I'll put some pictures in here. So looking at these pictures, I feel like kind of fits with the aesthetic I'm thinking will be in a book called The Wheels of Chance by H.G. Wells. This is a comic novel, and I want to pick it up because it sounds like 3 men in a boat, but with bicycles, and it's a man's cycling trip. And I just thought it fit with the aesthetic there on Main Street. And it says, "If you, presuming you are of the sex that does such things, if you had gone into the Drapery Emporium, which is really only magnificent for shop, of Messrs. Antrobus and Co., a perfectly fictitious Co., by the way, of Putney on the 14th of August, 1895, had turned to the right-hand side, where the blocks of white linen and piles of blankets rise up to the rail from which the pink and blue prints depend, you might have been served by the central figure of the story that is now beginning. He would have come forward bowing and swaying. He would have extended 2 hands with largest knuckles and enormous cuffs over the counter, and he would have asked you, protruding a pointed chin, and without the slightest anticipation of pleasure in his manner, what he might have the pleasure of showing you. Under certain circumstances, as for instance, hats, baby linen, gloves, silks, lace, or curtains. He would simply have bowed politely, and with a drooping expression and making a kind of circular sweep, invited you to step this way, and so led you beyond his ken, but under other and happier conditions, huckaback blankets, dimity, cretonne, linen, calico, or cases in point, he would have requested you to take a seat, emphasizing the hospitality by leaning over the counter and gripping a chair back in a spasmodic manner, and so proceeded to obtain, unfold, and exhibit his goods for your consideration, under which happier circumstances you might, if of an observing turn of mind, and not too much of a housewife to be inhuman, have given the central figure of the story less cursory attention. So I really enjoy that writing style, and I'm very excited to find another comic Victorian novel that will hopefully become a favorite. Then we move on to B-Ticket, and the ride that I am picking my inspiration from is the Swiss Family Robinson ride in Adventureland. And this book definitely goes along with the Adventureland feel. And I will be reading Kidnapped by Robert Louis Stevenson. I think I will be doing the audiobook of this, but I do have a physical copy coming from the library in case I want to do that instead. But the opening paragraph says, "I will begin the story of my adventures with a certain morning early in the month of June, the year of grace 1751, when I took the key for the last time out of the door of my father's house. The sun began to shine upon the summit of the hills as I went down the road, and by the time I had come as far as the manse, the blackbirds were whistling in the garden lilacs, and the mists that hung around the valley and the time of the dawn was beginning to arise and die away." I really wanted to have some kind of adventurous tale in my TBR, and I loved Treasure Island last Victober, and I'm really excited to read Kidnapped. I really don't know much about this, and I assume someone is kidnapped, but that's I'm fine going in blind because I'm just worried about spoilers. And then we get to the C-Ticket prompt, and the ride I'm going to take my inspiration from is in Fantasyland, and it is Peter Pan's Flight. And in Peter Pan, there are pirates, and I'm going to be reading along as I listen to The Pirates of Penzance by Gilbert and Sullivan. I can't believe it didn't occur to me before to read a Gilbert and Sullivan play while listening to it. They wrote really humorous operettas, and the first just stanza of the very first song, the opening song, says, "Pour, oh pour the pirate sherry, fill, oh fill the pirate glass, and to make us more than merry, let the pirate bumper pass." Doesn't that sound like so much fun? Very excited to have some Gilbert and Sullivan on my TBR this year. Then we get to D-Ticket, and I'm just going to be inspired by Fantasyland in general for the D-Ticket prompt, and I will be reading The Light Princess by George MacDonald. This is kind of, I don't think it's a short story, but it's the audiobook is only an hour and a half. I will be listening to this with my boys, and I'm pretty sure it is about a princess that has to be weighed down because she floats into the sky if she is not weighed down, and I love the sound of that. And then the last prompt for Boo To You, the E-Ticket, the ride I'm going to be inspired by is The Haunted Mansion. I just had to. And Emma and Anne, both of them in their videos, talked about how conducive this was to Victober. And I'm going to be reading Gothic Tales by Arthur Conan Doyle. Get a load of this cover. And then, are you ready for the spine? Look at that. It's just the eye looking. Oh, I cannot wait to read this. I am not the hugest Sherlock Holmes fan. I know. I feel I'm definitely in the minority, but I do like his writing, and I am really excited to read this. I think there are about 60 stories in here, some longer, some shorter. I think it'll be pretty doable to get through in the month, and cannot wait. I also have access to the audiobook, so I'll see kind of what vibe I want for my Gothic tales. Hopefully they're not too scary because I am a fraidy cat. And then I just have some other books that I am planning on reading because why not? And the first one is Mr. Harrison's Confessions by Elizabeth Gaskell. If you have seen the miniseries Cranford, there are several plot lines in it, and they basically combine the book Cranford, Mr. Harrison's Confessions, and My Lady Ludlow. And I just heard such wonderful things about Mr. Harrison's Confessions from Megan Hannett at Megan the Story Girl and Christy Lewis from Christy Lewis Dostoevsky in Space. I was supposed to buddy read it with them a year and a half ago. and I'm finally getting around to it. But I just love this plotline. It's comical, and I think there's going to be some really, I don't know, sweet things in it, and just I'm really excited to have an Elizabeth Gaskell that I hadn't thought of reading before because it's shorter, but I want to investigate more of her short fiction. And the opening paragraph says, "The fire was burning gaily. My wife had just gone upstairs to put baby to bed. Charles sat opposite me, looking very brown and handsome. It was pleasant enough that we should feel sure of spending some weeks under the same roof, a thing which we had never done since we were mere boys. I felt too lazy to talk, so I ate walnuts and looked into the fire, but Charles grew restless." How cozy does that sound? I'm very excited to be reading this. More from my favorite author. And then a different kind of book, and this might be my Victober bedtime reading, I'm not sure, but Queen Victoria's Highland Journals. So these are from her time that she spent at Balmoral Castle in Scotland. And what I love about this is it is just filled with different paintings, illustrations of the castle or different places that they might have gone. And yes, this is Albert in his hunting gear. And just finding out the ways that they were able to really relax and recuperate when they were in Scotland. And I would just love getting to read something from Queen Victoria herself. And it does include some Halloween traditions that they did while they were there, which I love. Queen Victoria celebrating Halloween. And then continuing on in the nonfiction vein is Anthony Trollope, An Autobiography and Other Writings. The big majority of this is his autobiography. And I just adore Anthony Trollope. I really do. And I want to read this. I want to know, other authors like Dickens and Thomas Hardy, I'm pretty sure I will dislike them if I read their biographies. So I just don't want to do that. But Anthony Trollope, he was just a regular guy. He delivered the mail as his day job, and then he wrote novels in his spare time. And I just adore that about him. So I don't think I'll read the opening of this. I want to wrap this video up. It's going really long, but very excited about this. And then continuing on with the nonfiction, I got the Selected Letters of Charlotte Bronte. I heard so many good things about this. This kind of floated around a bit during last year's Victober, and I was jealous. So I will be reading this. It is a shorter collection. There is a really behemoth collection of all the Bronte's letters, but I like that this is a shorter one, and it goes 245 pages, and there are kind of notes underneath each letter. Oh yeah, there's a lot of notes under that. That's just all notes. So yes, I think it will be a really delightful experience. And then I'm also going to be listening to an audiobook by Kenneth Grahame of The Wind in the Willows fame, but he did have a couple books that were published during the Victorian era, and this is The Golden Age. It does have mixed reviews on Goodreads. I think it's fairly flowery language and his kind of very nostalgic meanderings on his childhood. I don't know if I'll like it, but I love the idea of having this kind of shorter audiobook to have during Victober, and we will see if I like it. And then another audiobook that I bought last year, and I was planning on reading it during last year's Victober and didn't get around to it, but it's supposed to be very funny, and that is Raffles, the Amateur Cracksman by E.W. Hornung. He is a gentleman thief who loves to play cricket also. It's supposed to be really funny, and I think you are conflicted about how you feel about him because he is a thief. And I think he wants to just have this kind of lavish lifestyle. That's why he is a thief. I'm not sure. I will have to read it and find out. But yes, have the audiobook, and hopefully I will read it this year. And then a big audiobook plan for the month to do with my boys, and that is The Story of the Treasure Seekers by E. Nesbit. So E. Nesbit was she straddled between Victorian and Edwardian, but this is one that came out in the Victorian era. And I love that the opening sentence says, "This is the story of the different ways we looked for treasure. And I think when you have read it, you will see that we were not lazy about the looking." This family is the Bastables, and I think it's just about these kids looking for treasure. Apparently the Bastables are referenced in The Magician's Nephew by C.S. Lewis, but I did not remember that until my nephew was telling me this. So I'm really excited to read this. I loved Five Children and It by E. Nesbit and The Book of Dragons that I read last year for Victober, and I want to read more. Then another set of plays I'm going to be reading. So I'm, doing Gilbert and Sullivan. I might, if I have a blast with The Pirates of Penzance, I have just a big bind up of their plays coming from the library. I might do some more of their operettas. I'm not sure. But I also know that I want to read George Bernard Shaw's Plays Pleasant. And those are 3 plays, and it's Arms and the Man, Candida, and You Never Can Tell. Now, what intrigued me so much about You Never Can Tell is it said in the synopsis that he wrote it as a bet that he couldn't write a seaside comedy, which was very popular at the time. And I thought, what is this genre of seaside comedy play? I need to know about it. And I Googled it, and it's just so obscure. I'm having trouble finding things. So maybe just very specific Googling, I can find something. I don't know. I want to know more about it. Okay, then Lady Anna by Anthony Trollope. I just realized I have a lot of sensational type fiction and the Gothic tales and humorous stuff, but I want something in the kind of slice of life, sort of very character driven domestic novel. And so I will be reading Lady Anna by Anthony Trollope. It has gotten rave reviews from my friends that like Anthony Trollope, and I really want to read it. I know there's something to do involving an inheritance and who it should go to. And I think Lady Anna's just going to be this wonderful leading lady. I want to read it. And that was another audiobook I had last year. I had bought it ready for Victober, and I didn't get around to it. Hopefully this Victober, I will read it. And then lastly, one little thing that one of, in my Patreon book club, Elizabeth, has inspired me. She heard about this, I can't remember where she heard about this, but reading the same poem every day for a month. So I am, definitely biting off a lot with starting The Ring in the Book. But I also think it would be a really fun experience to read aloud, or just to read, The Lady of Shalott every day for a month. And I just was rewatching the 80s Anne of Green Gables movies, and they always make me want to read The Lady of Shalott. So I thought, yes, I'm going to read it every day for a month. Next year, Tennyson, I will get to you. I will get to this whole collection. But this year, in the meanwhile, The Lady of Shalott will tide me over. Okay, that is my outrageous, ridiculous Victober TBR. This is how it goes. I spent the whole year eliminating books that I didn't want to, and I have taken off around 15 books off this list of ones that I realized, you know what? I'm not actually super enthusiastic about that. So these, I'm really enthusiastic about all of them. We're just going to see. Let the chips fall where they may. Let the Victober reading fall where it does. I don't know, but can't wait to see what everyone else is going to read. Can't wait. Let's just make this the best Victober ever. Thank you, as always, for watching, and I'll be back with many, many videos in the month of October very soon. Bye.